All right, it is my honor. I get to welcome everyone to our semi-annual HAQAST meeting. My name's Kevin Cromar. I'm your unofficial Utah host. I'm just going to make a few quick points before I pass it over to Tracey and John. I love the HAQAST program. I love its approach. I love its objectives. I think it's a great way to, I think we have a second here. It's a great way to take our scientific research and apply it in a meaningful way that can benefit society. And that's the goal we all have. Not only that, I feel like the associations that we make through HAQAST really amplifies our ability to do our work. And I think over the next day and a half, we're going to see lots of examples how together we've been able to accomplish more than we could as individual labs. I just want to make a comment about our time here in Utah. We booked this hotel specifically because we're at the base of the mountains. We encourage everyone to get out, enjoy the scenery, enjoy the beauty of the fall. If you have questions about some fun things to do, I know there's some groups going out to do a little bit of hiking, a little bit of group activity. Grab us at lunch and we can kind of team you up with people doing that. But it's a beautiful season. Please enjoy Utah and what it has to offer. The last thing I'd like to say before I pass it over, whether this is your first scientific conference or you've been to 1,000 of these, the goal for a successful conference should be the same. If I could give you a loose measuring stick for what I use, what you want to do over the next day and a half is see if you can't find one new scientific idea, one new method, one new approach that can help you in your own work. If you can do that, you've had a successful scientific meeting. And then the second goal you should be working towards is see if you can't make one new connection, a new colleague, a new networking opportunity, a new collaborator. If you can walk away from this conference with a new scientific idea and a new contact, that's a great measuring stick for a successful meeting. I just want to thank Jenny and Tracey and their team. They've been fantastic putting this together. If you don't have a good experience, talk to them. If you have a great experience, come talk to me and I will say what a great meeting that Utah meeting was. And with that, we'll pass it over to Jenny. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Kevin. And Jenny, will you? Really exciting to be here in beautiful Salt Lake City. And thanks to all of you for making the trip here, whether it was across town or across the country. We're really thrilled to have such a vibrant and diverse and engaged community here. I'll stand wherever Jenny tells me to stand. Okay. My name's Tracey Holloway, and I'm a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, but I'm here today with my hat on as the team lead of the NASA Health and Air Quality Applied Sciences team, or HAQAST. And we are, as Kevin mentioned, here at our twice yearly team meetings in Salt Lake City. We are, my goal with this talk today is to orient us so that you can hopefully get the most out of the team meeting and feel like you have all of your basic questions answered that can hopefully tee you up for work throughout the rest of the day and the rest of the meeting and your years to come using NASA data products. So first, I'd like to thank not only NASA for supporting the HAQAST enterprise, for flying in stakeholder partners from over 16 different organizations. I'd also like to thank Jenny Bradford, who has been the lead of this meeting enterprise. Two of my graduate students, Josh Diamond and Lizzie Kaisela, who will be live streaming this. So greetings to everybody who is attending online. And also, of course, our host, Kevin Cromar, and his organization, New York University, who is generously funding all of the delicious treats and pastries and coffee and lunches that you'll be enjoying over the next 2 days. This is our in-person meeting with online attendance as well. We have not had this large of a meeting in many, many years due to the pandemic. So it's very exciting, and also exciting that over a third of you here today are first-time attendees at a HAQAST meeting. So that's raise your hand if this is your first HAQAST meeting. Well, I can't raise my, yay, welcome. Awesome. So, you know, years ago, we had a HAQAST meeting in Seattle, and we always survey attendees after the meeting. And after that meeting, people said that they'd sat through 2 days of talks and they still didn't understand what HAQAST is. So now I always start every meeting with this slide of what is HAQAST, and it is the Health and Air Quality Applied Sciences team. This is a 4-year initiative funded by NASA, which launched in early 2021 and runs through January 2025. We have 14 members of this team. Each member is the principal investigator. That's science speak for leading a team of co-investigators, students, postdocs, collaborators. So all total, we have a network of over 60 investigators working on this team. And these are in turn working with networks of partners in health and air quality organizations. And the mission of HAQAST is to connect NASA science with air quality and health applications. So whether you are currently using it, whether you want to use it, whether you are skeptical about using NASA data, we hope that this meeting and the partnerships that you are making can move your work forward, whatever that means to you. There are 4 types of initiatives funded by this NASA HAQAST activity. One are what we call member projects, because each of these 14 groups had to apply to be on the team with a peer review process consistent with other NASA research funding activities. So they had to say, this is what we'll do if we're selected for the team. And these projects are then moving ahead on this 4-year schedule. We also have collaborative Tiger Team projects, which I'll tell you about in a minute. We have rapid response funding, which is funding from NASA, recognizing that not all problems were known about back in 2020. The world has changed for the better in many ways since 2020. And so having funding available to address emergent questions is part of the unique aspects of this team. And then as a last part, we do a lot of outreach and engagement from these in-person meetings, the online meetings, our websites, social media, newsletters. And our goal is to make sure that we're connecting with the communities that could benefit from this work. And at the top, you see our first in-person meeting at the Texas Medical Center, and more recently, an article that just came out this week in Earth Data profiling the HAQAST team to build awareness of all the different applications of NASA data products and featuring some of the work of our own Qian Xiao at the Texas Medical Center with a map of lights at night over Chicago and vulnerable communities in Chicago. And I'm not sure if this exact work was with the planetarium in Chicago, but I know the Adler Planetarium is an example of a stakeholder who's doing a lot with lights at night in Chicago. So the HAQAST team that runs currently is the 3rd generation of an effort that was launched back in 2011. The first team was called the NASA Air Quality Applied Sciences Team, or HAQAST, and then it was recompeted in 2016 as HAQAST, and then recompeted again in 2020 as HAQAST. And what we found is that the team structure really changes things from a business as usual approach of just one scientist leading a project. It increases the visibility of work and resources to the community. It builds a culture of collaboration. It enables two-way dialogue where we can hear from organizations like at this meeting, as well as sharing some of the cool work that's been emerging from this NASA science. We can collaborate to meet needs that may not fall into the wheelhouse of just one researcher. And we can hear what is most impactful and move it forward quickly. So the 14 members of the team come from universities and research centers, literally from Alaska to Florida, and serve stakeholder organizations that span the US and international organizations. One term you'll hear through the meeting is the idea of a Tiger Team. And Tiger Teams are these collaborative efforts that cut across the 14 groups and bring us together to solve priority questions relevant to health and air quality organizations. These ideas are pitched, developed in collaboration with real world partners, and all of the reviews are done by volunteer reviewers from the kind of health and air quality organizations that we hope to serve. In our 4-year funded initiative, we have 2 rounds of Tiger teams. One round was just selected this summer and has just kicked off. And so you'll be hearing today both some of the completed work from the first round of Tiger teams, as well as the emergent work from the new set of Tiger teams. And the new set of Tiger teams are listed here. One is focused on using the new Tempo satellite to address ozone applications. One focusing on how can models better understand air pollution that's flowing in to the US. One focused on oil and gas. One focused on environmental justice, and one using the NOAA GOES-R satellite to provide information on fine particulate matter. This is not the universe of work coming out of our team, but this is just the recently launched teams that kicked off this July. When we're thinking about what do we mean by NASA data, NASA science, there's a wide portfolio of models, aircraft, and ground measurements. But the star of the show is the amazing portfolio of satellite data and instruments that have been launched for well over a decade and continuously are updated. You'll hear a lot of the terminology for this instrument or that instrument, but the instrument you'll be hearing the most about is Tempo. And what makes Tempo so special is that it is the first satellite to provide hourly air pollution information across North America. And Tempo was launched earlier this year. We're happy to have Erin Nager here, who leads the early adopters program and applications for Tempo. That's right. Lots of cheers there. Tempo was launched earlier this year. The first light images were just released a couple of weeks ago, and the data should be publicly available starting this spring. So you won't be seeing much Tempo results yet, but really we are on the horizon of Tempo being the star of the show. And I know there's a lot of there's going to be a lot of discussion about how things might be different with Tempo data included. We have a lot of different ways of working with stakeholder organizations. We have over 5,000 Twitter followers. We have over 1,000 newsletter subscribers. Lots of folks are using our website and accessing resources and coming to meetings. And over the past year plus, we've also been really thrilled to be working with high-level representatives from organizations that we kind of colloquially refer to as our super users, who have been involved with NASA activities and really excited about thinking about how satellite data could support their work. And we have 3 new ambassadors since our last meeting: Zach Edelman from LADCO, who's here today, and Maeve McMurdo from the Cleveland Clinic, and Pat Reddy, who's here today as well, but formerly at the Colorado Department of Public Health and the Environment. But you can see it really spans a wide range of different users. And if you are excited about NASA data and want to be helping be an ambassador to your communities, we would really welcome you applying to be an ambassador as well. So to tee up today's meeting, I was really thrilled that just this week, a new paper was accepted in the journal Environmental Science and Policy by a group in the UK, graduate student Dan Potts, his advisor Emma Ferretti, and Josh Van de Hey. And their study, you might say, why are we talking about this study? It's in the UK. But their study was in part inspired by HAQAST because they were looking at the barriers and pathways to implementing satellite data into air quality monitoring, regulation, and policy design. Now, they were looking at the United Kingdom, but they surveyed 2 groups, and they called these groups Group A and Group B. But their Group A and Group B broadly maps onto what we call scientists and researchers, and what we call stakeholders or data users. So I'm going to play a little game just to get us going this morning. If you could think about whether you think of yourself more in the orange category or in the blue category, and then I'll ask you a couple of questions. Do you consider satellite air quality data in their current state to be useful to yourself as a potential end user? So let's see what the UK analog. So these are not HAQAST participants, but sort of a control group. And so the scientists and researchers, of course, said yes. And the stakeholders and data users, for the most part, said no. You can see why I love this study. It's so relevant to the kind of things we're trying to do at our meeting. Have you ever collaborated with the other group on the incorporation of satellite data into air quality management activities? Now here they agree. No, they have not. But I'm going to end on a really wonderful note to say, would you be interested in a knowledge exchange program, perhaps like HAQAST, where satellite data experts and end users could work collaboratively to utilize satellite air quality data for improved air quality management? And the answer is yes. Yes. I think this is a really nice way to tee up, and I'd like to thank Dan and Emma and Josh for allowing me to share this not even off the press results with you today. But as we're here and thinking about how to get the most out of this meeting, I really appreciated Kevin's advice a few minutes ago of finding a new idea or a new partner, very aligned with many of the things that I had already proposed, which is to talk to new people, and making the point that actually 1 in 3 people here is new to HAQAST. So everybody should feel like there's a lot of new folks to be meeting at this meeting. The way we've structured this meeting is unique. We have all of the panel talks are 10 minutes each. Note for those of you who are moderating panels to keep the speeches to 10 minutes, no more. And one of the reasons we keep these short and to the point is to allow a lot of time for Q&A and discussion. Because during the Q&A and discussion, everybody in the room is part of the conversation, and we hope that you will play a role in shaping how these issues are tackled. We hope that you will share our resources, whether it's the meeting, which is online and live streaming, or recordings when they're available with your networks. And we also hope that you'll help us build a better translation guide. And there's a lot of jargon when it comes to NASA, and I am sorry. That is just the way it is. But we'll try to do our best with your help to be building the translation tools. And we've already started a glossary that is online at hacast.org/glossary. And if you see terms that you hear at the meeting that we feel that aren't in the glossary, let us know and we'll be updating those. And finally, we'd love to share your ideas. All of our work is driven by what we hear in these communities as information needs. And so sharing your ideas, whether through the Q&A, whether through informal conversations, whether through the follow-up survey that you'll be getting at the end of this meeting, we really want to hear what we could do that would help your organizations. To orient us with respect to today's and tomorrow's events, we have the session that you're in right now, and I'm excited to hand over the mic in a few minutes to my colleague, John Haynes. Then we'll have another networking break. These networking breaks are a great way to be meeting and engaging in both big and small conversations. Then we'll have parallel breakout sessions. These are all on your session, on your agenda, so I won't belabor them, but we have breakout sessions this morning, then lunch. Thank you, NYU. Breakout sessions in the early afternoon, more networking, more breakout sessions, and then we'll end at 4:15 to enjoy Salt Lake City, as Kevin suggested. Then tomorrow we are moving. We're not going to be in this location anymore. We are moving to be hosted by the Utah Department of Environmental Quality. There are shuttles that will be departing at 8 o'clock. There's also Ubers and other ways, your own cars. But then we'll have a morning poster session, which is a great way to talk one-on-one with scientists and early career and other partners who are presenting their work. More networking, another breakout session, one more on a focus on ozone, one on PM 2.5. And then we'll have our first ever set of flash talks on NASA data products, because there's a lot of cool data products, and this is just a way to sort of get a sampler platter. And then finally, with some closing remarks on this broad challenge of translating data to decision-making. If you are working on your computers at all, whether now or in the future, you can always go to our website. There's a lot of resources. The data and tools is one resource that I'd like to especially point out. It has a lot of updates, including a new flow chart that was recommended by our ambassadors to help guide users from where their problem all the way through. When my student, Jennifer McGinnis, who's here somewhere, she started doing this, and I thought it would be like a 2-page document. It turned into a 54-page document because it is a little bit convoluted to navigate your way through, but hopefully this is a way to figure out what is the tutorial or website or publication that can help you. We also have a new community forum that is new since our meeting in St. Louis earlier this year, which is haq.community.forum. It's also linked from our website under the community forum. And this is really intended for all of you to get both technical and non-technical questions answered and discussed. And so I'll end by marking your calendars for our next meeting, which will be at MIT in Boston, Massachusetts, or Cambridge in June 4th and 5th. And with that, I'll hand it over to John Haynes. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we can move that interesting. Life-saving John Haynes over here. Folks standing, there's some seats. Come on down.
There's some seats up front.
Oh, and for the online audience, I just want to let you know you can ask questions through the Q&A or chat that we'll take at the end. My computer's very slow. Sorry. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you, Tracey. First of all, reiterate the thanks to Tracey, Jenny, the whole UW team for organizing this amazing meeting. And also, of course, thanks to Kevin Cromar and NYU for putting together such an amazing venue and great weather and great scenery. So I'm John Haynes. I am Program Manager of Health and Air Quality Applications at NASA headquarters in Washington, D.C. In that role, I serve as the program manager as well for the Health and Air Quality Applied Sciences team, as it falls under my portfolio and has since the very beginning back in 2011. I sit at NASA headquarters as part of the Earth Science Division. I sit in the Earth Action Program, which I'm going to discuss because there's been a lot of changes since we met in St. Louis, all good changes. I'll put it that way. Good changes that have happened in NASA's Earth Science strategy over the last 6 months. And so I'm going to take a little time today to discuss that as well. But as always, I like to give an update of what's happened since we met in St. Louis. What was big news? One of the big news was we have another Earth Science satellite launch, the final launch of our Tropics smallsat constellation. The final launch of the final 2 small sats was on May 26th from Rocket Lab's base in New Zealand. For those of you who do not know much about Tropics, Tropics is a constellation of small sats that is investigating the structure of tropical cyclones globally at unprecedented temporal resolution. So we're really excited to have Tropics join our Earth Science satellite constellation, which, as Tracey mentioned, is really the bread and butter of our work here. So currently, there are over 20 satellites and sensors in NASA's Earth Science constellation, continuously monitoring Earth's weather, climate, and environment for research and applications purposes. This constellation includes several sensors on board the continuously crewed International Space Station. When you're looking at this chart, all the satellites in the cooler colors, the greens and the blues, are the ones that we currently have operating on orbit. The ones that are in the warmer colors, the oranges and the yellows, are the ones we plan to launch from now through the end of the decade, because currently this is the largest civilian Earth-observing satellite constellation the world has ever known. An investment by year of the U.S. government of approximately $2 billion, that's billion with a B, U.S. dollars. And so we want to make sure that we keep it the most robust Earth-observing constellation that the world's ever known. So we, again, as Tracey mentioned, always are planning ahead and pushing the envelope of research and technology to get new observations and new satellites on orbit. I would be remiss to say that, if I didn't say that this constellation would not be possible without our partners, both domestically and internationally. Domestically with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the U.S. Geological Survey, internationally with folks such as the European European Space Agency, the Japanese Space Agency, the Canadian Space Agency, just to name a few. So next slide. So one of the changes that has happened over the last 6 months is our director of NASA Earth Sciences, Dr. Karen St. Germain, and she has led an effort over the past few years to pivot NASA's Earth science strategy to be more focused on Earth actions, solutions, and outcomes, which is really great news for our group here and for the entire portfolio of Earth action. In fact, in this new strategy, which is called Earth Science to Action, they are elevating HAQAST in that strategy as a quintessential example of how you get from science to action. And so part of that is, and I'll announce it right here, you probably already knew, or I hope you already knew, that we will be, this team, of course, as Tracey mentions, ends its 4-year mandate in January 2025, but we will be recompeting HAQAST for HAQAST version 4 in next year's ROSE's 2024 NASA solicitation. So be looking for that when it comes out. But this strategy of Earth Science to Action really starts at the bottom of this pyramid. So we do it in this like kind of pyramid graphic, if you will. It really starts with the foundational knowledge. That's the technology. Those are the missions. Those are the data. So we need the foundation of the strategy built upon our innovation, our missions, our data that we're collecting from space, air, and ground. And then as we move up the pyramid, the next piece of the puzzle here is on Earth system science and applied research. And using all of that data from airborne, ground to satellite to grow scientific understanding of the Earth system, develop predictive models, and use those to design applications and tools for mitigating, adapting, and responding to climate change. So you can definitely see this is where HAQAST begins to fit into this pyramid. But it also fits into the next part of the pyramid, which is on solutions and societal value. We want to benefit at NASA Humanity through offering models, findings, and information through open source science principles, supporting climate services, and providing applications and tools to inform decision making. And kind of the spear, the top, the capstone of the pyramid is getting that information into the public understanding and exchange, to engage broader audiences and data users, to put this understanding in the public sphere, develop applied science to users, participate in multi-way information exchange, and use input to inform subsequent work. Because as you can tell, that pyramid has the feedback back to foundations, because we want to bring that information back to the foundational level as we're designing and launching new missions over the next 3, 5, 10 years to meet user needs, meet the challenges that we are facing globally, including with the climate crisis. So as part of, an integral part of that strategy is NASA Earth Action, where I sit and where HAQAST sits. Now, for those of you who are veterans of NASA work over the past many, many years, this is what was formerly known as the Applied Sciences Program. Now, don't worry, Applied Sciences hasn't gone away. It's gotten bigger. And it's gotten so much bigger that it had to be rebranded. It's gotten bigger in ways thematically. We still have all the thematic areas that Applied Sciences originally had, including health and air quality, but we've added new thematic areas. We've added thematic areas on climate resilience, on wildfires, on environmental justice, on energy and infrastructure. So we've added thematic areas and breadth to Applied Sciences, but then we've also taken pieces of Earth science at NASA that were in other areas and added them to our portfolio because they really lent themselves to this idea of Earth action. And that includes things such as the Greenhouse Gas Center at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. That includes the Commercial Satellite Data Program. That includes the Satellite Needs Working Group. That includes the new Earth Information Center, which is a hybrid physical and virtual space that was recently launched to help bring this understanding of Earth science to the public. And in fact, the first physical space of the Earth Information Center opened in June at NASA headquarters in our East Lobby. It's open to the public with lots of immersive and dynamic visualizations that the public can actually zoom into their own neighborhood, for example, to see air quality in their neighborhood and understand how satellite data feeds into that. And we have just launched the second physical node of the Earth Information Center at the Natural History Museum of the Smithsonian on the Mall in Washington as well. Yes, yes, and you should applaud, because I didn't know that many people said, why wasn't it the Air and Space Museum? We chose the Natural History Museum because it's actually the most visited museum in Washington. And we were like, the people go to the Air and Space Museum, they're probably already kind of true believers, because I mean, they're science geeks, they're really into, NASA and all that. We said, but if you put it at the Natural History Museum, maybe you're going to get some people who had never even thought about NASA, and certainly probably didn't think about NASA or science. So it's really exciting that we've launched that. So fundamentally, from applied scientists, our mission and what we do has not changed. The three key words, though, that we're really focusing on are scalability, scaling our solutions, scaling our outcomes to new geographies, to new users, to new communities, building bridges not only internally at NASA with our colleagues in research, technology, and data, but also building bridges outside of NASA to new communities, new users. And as always, focused on these user-centric solutions, user-centric projects. So in our health and air quality program, fundamentally why we exist is because of the impact of climate change on human health. And I just love this graphic from the CDC. I show it all the time. Where's Rish? Rish is somewhere in here from the CDC. There he is. Thank you, Rish, for this wonderful graphic. I don't know if you put it together, but it's awesome. Because it really fundamentally shows how climate change touches every aspect of human health. And, I said, I'm really lucky to have been in this position leading health and air quality for 20 years now, because I said fundamentally two things that people always love talking about. They love talking about the weather and they love talking about their health. And I'm lucky enough to have a program to combine the two. And so people always want to engage and learn more about it and where NASA fits in. And so I'm sure you could see from your own background, your own research, your own communities, how you fit in to this chart. So our objectives have not changed. NASA Health and Air Quality supports the use of Earth observations in air quality management and public health, particularly regarding infectious disease and environmental health issues, toxic and pathogenic exposure and health-related hazards, implementation of air quality standards, policies, and regulations, and effects of climate change on health and air quality. Always looking at these issues through the lens of One Health, understanding that human health, animal health, and environmental health are all interconnected and have to be looked at in a holistic manner. We work across sectors, across geographies, across communities. We work with everybody. And at the bottom, you can just see a small subset of the people we work with. Not meant to be exhaustive. You don't see your organization up there. Don't worry. If I listed them all, it would go on for pages. But at the international level, with such agencies as many UN agencies, at the federal level, CDC, EPA, NOAA, National Institutes of Health, many state departments of environmental quality and departments of health, as well as in the private sector. We are really engaging and expanding our private sector work, including on the for-profit side, for example, with AER Incorporated and Google, but also on the nonprofit and philanthropic side with such folks as the Moore Foundation, the Gates Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation. So it's really an exciting time to be leading up this program. Now, as I mentioned, the health and air quality portfolio, HAQAST is a big piece of it, but it's bigger than that. In fact, as Tracey mentioned, there's 14 members and 14 grants that are part of HAQAST core work. But we have an additional about 15 projects in health and air quality that are outside of HAQAST. They're in the spirit of HAQAST. They're looking at the same type of topics, but they're more of those, as Tracey said, traditional one principal investigator leading a team looking at one specific problem. Just to give you a flavor of a couple of those that I thought you'd be interested in and what we have going on. One was a project that was just recently concluded. It was led by Dr. Jason Otkin of the University of Wisconsin in partnership with LADCO, which we know, of course, LADCO's here and Zach's here and one of our ambassadors. But they were looking at simulating air pollution along urban coastal boundaries, particularly in Lake Michigan, but because it's a challenging area because of the complex meteorology with lake breezes there. And so using NASA high-resolution satellite data, we worked with them, LADCO and the LADCO member states, to improve their models that are used to demonstrate air pollutant attainment strategies that are required under the Clean Air Act. Also, we have another project called Fire AQ that is being led by Dr. June Wang, who is also here at the University of Iowa. And one of the key things that Dr. Wang and his team have been doing is engaging a breadth of stakeholders. In fact, they, during the fire season, are having weekly briefings using satellite data on wildfires that are currently active and how that the air quality and the smoke and the plumes from those wildfires, how that's going to impact air quality across the United States. Again, these meetings are held weekly during the fire season. They have over 21, that's currently 21 stakeholder organizations and state and federal air quality management who are on those weekly meetings with Dr. Wang and his team. So it's a really an amazing project. I encourage you to look at fireaq.iowa.edu for more. So some other items of note, and pretty good on time. Number one is, as part of Earth Action, formerly Applied Sciences, gotten bigger. It's now Earth Action. Since it got bigger, we had to not only rebrand, but also the leadership had to be recompeted because it's taking in so many more areas of Earth science. So Dr. Tom Wagner is our new Associate Director for NASA Earth Action. He was named as our new director in June. Dr. Wagner is no stranger to NASA. He's a NASA vet, an amazing guy, an amazing communicator. Hopefully you'll get a chance to meet him. I'm going to try to drag him up to Boston for HAQAST Boston or HAQAST Cambridge. Dr. Wagner served as the lead for cryospheric research at NASA headquarters from 2009 to 2019. Then he went over and did a 4-year detail in NASA planetary science, but we're glad to have him back home in Earth science now, leading Earth Action. Some business items for our 14 PIs and their co-Is. I know, unfortunately, our NASA Shared Services Center, which is our lead center for placing grants and procurement, has been extremely slow, and it's frustrating. I know for you, it's frustrating for me. They are woefully understaffed. I think, except I know one issue, but I think everybody should have at this point received their Tiger Team funding. If you have not yet received your Tiger Team funding, please pull me aside and let me know so we can try to figure out where the roadblock is. Also, a reminder, your annual reports are due 60 days prior to your anniversary date. For most of you, that's coming up very soon. Please get these in sooner rather than later. I cannot release your next year of funding for core until I have that annual report. And I'm saying sooner rather than later because, as many of you will know, watching the news, et cetera, and so forth, we currently have a little bit of an issue in Congress on passing a budget for FY24. I'm actually kind of surprised I'm even here and that luckily the government didn't shut down on October 1st, but we're under what's known as a continuing resolution through November 17th, which just means that we're just getting the same amount of funding prorated from the FY23 levels through the 17th of November. But if Congress does not act by November 17th, we will shut down at that point again. And also, as you know, we currently do not even have a Speaker of the House. So, and that means no business can be conducted in the House. So sooner rather than later, get your stuff in so I can get you your money, because if we shut down, then nothing's going to flow for a little while. We've certainly talked about the new Tiger Teams. Funding is going to be available in FY24 for those rapid response projects that Tracey mentioned. Again, critical emergent needs. These are not meant to be as large and grandiose as Tiger Teams. They're meant to be very focused, responding to critical needs of our stakeholders and partners that have emerged over the past 6-8 months. So we think I believe we're going to have about $500,000 available in FY24 for these rapid response projects. So it's time to start working with your stakeholders and partners, PIs, about ideas you have for this. It's going to be a rolling submission to me and Tracey, but we're probably going to have to set a cutoff in about March about not taking any more submissions because I need to get the funding out. And again, that kind of goes back to it's kind of not optimum in how quickly this funding is getting out through NSSC. So probably March will be somewhere in the deadline. We'll define it a little further later, but be thinking now about what you would want to do to benefit your stakeholders with those funds. We have a link there to the NASA Earth Science Senior Review. I'm not going to go too much into that because of time, but every 3 years, NASA reviews all of our satellite missions that have gone past their prime operation stage. They're reviewed not only by a research panel, but also by a national interest stakeholder panel to determine and to recommend to NASA whether those missions should continue in extended operations because of the value of research and applications to the nation and the world. We completed the 2023 senior review a few months ago, and they recommended the continuation and extension of mission of all of our missions currently on orbit. RSET training has been amazing. We love working with our applied remote sensing training program. They have been a great partner and friend to us here in HAQAST, and they in fact had, working with HAQAST, a satellite data for air quality, environmental justice, and equity applications back in August. Lots of sessions, lots of different places. We're really getting the word out. I mentioned earlier that a fundamental part of our new Earth Science to Action strategy is open science, that we are fostering adoption of open science practices and principles across the scientific community at NASA. I give you an open invitation to also join our group on Earth observations. You can go to our website at geohealthcop.org to learn more about that. I am proud to chair this group on Earth observations health community of practice, along with a colleague of mine from NOAA, and Helena Chapman, raise your hand, Helena, serves as our executive coordinator of this group. This is an open global community and forum to exchange, network, collaborate across issues related to Earth observations for health. So we welcome you all. It's open to everybody, and we meet a couple times a month virtually, as well as having an in-person meeting typically at the American Geophysical Union Fall meeting, which this year is in December in San Francisco. I invite you to go check out Laura Judd's Flash Talk tomorrow to learn more about STAX. STAX is the airborne field campaign that NASA ran, Laura Judd personally ran back this summer, Synergistic Tempo Air Quality Science. This included airborne flights across several cities across the United States, including LA, Chicago, New York, also some flights in the Baltimore-Washington corridor in Toronto that worked to not only have observations from the airborne field campaign, but also to have these at the same time of tempo overflights to help, again, look and validate the tempo data. She has a flash talk tomorrow that goes more into this, so I invite you to see that. And speaking of tempo, as Tracey said, going to hear a lot about tempo at this meeting. Tempo first flight was on August 24th. We are going to nominal operations in April. I think it's still planned for April, Aaron, correct? For nominal operations. Encourage you to go to Aaron's talk at the breakout session to learn more about tempo in general, but I do, for eye candy, want to show off tempo first light data to you. So this was first light. This was observations from tempo on August 2nd across the United States of nitrogen dioxide. Again, as Tracey mentioned, tempo is our first geostationary air quality satellite, our first NASA Earth Science geostationary satellite, looking at pollutants across greater North America, hour by hour in the daylight at an unprecedented spatial resolution down at the neighborhood level. So this again is looking at nitrogen dioxide specifically, and as the first light data visualization goes on, you will see tempo. We're zooming in to different heavily polluted corridors of the United States, including the I-95 corridor from New York City down to Washington. And again, tempo is going to be able to give us so much information about how pollutants change diurnally from AM rush to PM rush. We're now zooming in here on Houston. Unfortunately, another very polluted city in our country. Again, seeing how nitrogen dioxide changes hour by hour. And then the final zoom in this visualization will be in Southern California, across LA and San Diego. And we're looking at finding even surprises in this data. Not surprised with Los Angeles glowing bright red, but when you look just to the east of Tijuana on the Mexican-U.S. border, there's a big hotspot there, and that's the city of Mexicali. Mexicali has a large amount of factories and industrial base there, and that until this tempo first light data came about, we weren't really aware how much nitrogen dioxide was actually being produced there, and also, of course, being ejected across northern Mexico and into the southwestern United States. So we're already seeing things at this high resolution, both spatially and temporally, that we were unaware of. And it's just going to be a wealth of data for not only our researchers, but also our applied, our applications users, our stakeholders, and our partners. Looking forward, we also have the launch of Maya coming up in 2025. Maya is our Sentinel partnership between NASA and epidemiologists and health organizations on a satellite mission. Maya will be a targeted mission targeting megacities across the globe, looking at particulate matter data. And these megacities have been chosen because they have ongoing health cohort studies in those cities. So working with epidemiologists on the ground, we're going to be assessing linkages between airborne PM types measured by Maya and also by ground observations, and looking at linkages with adverse health outcomes. We also have coming up for launch in just a few months, January 24, our NASA Plankton Aerosol Cloud and Ecosystem mission known as PACE. PACE is going to be a revolutionary ocean color instrument. But in addition to that, it's going to have on board a multi-angle polarimeter that's going to measure particle sizes and composition of atmospheric aerosols as well. So this is going to be very important as well for the air quality community. And looking forward, toward the end of the decade and the beginning of the 2030s, we will be going to launch a new constellation, a next generation constellation of NASA Earth Science satellites known now as the Earth System Observatory. A big piece of that will be what is now going to be called the Atmosphere Observing System, or AOS, that will include satellites that are dedicated to aerosols, clouds, convection, and precipitation. So with that, I'll stop there. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Also visit our website. It's still appliedsciences.nasa.gov to learn more, and I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Why don't you stay here? And I'll say we have a coffee break now for a half hour, but there's plenty of time for a couple kickoff questions if there's any starter comments on the team as a whole. Yes.
Jesse Marquez, I'm the founder and executive director of the Coalition for a Safe Environment. We're an environmental justice organization formed in April 2001 in the Los Angeles Harbor. In one of your slides, it was shown that some of the tasks of some of the committees, and one got down to public health. Well, we're another layer, as you're well aware of. Environmental justice movement has grown significantly in the last 20 years, where there are now organizations such as ours that are specializing, and actually we're the first now to venture into looking at satellite data. And so we do have our theories and things that we want to learn and what policies, directions we should be going. But I think that needs to be another layer added now as to, on the ground grassroots level, where do we fit in and what type of information do we need?
Yeah, and maybe I'll address that with 2 points, and John can add to that. First of all, when John mentioned that there's this new Earth action lens of NASA, one of the focus areas is explicitly environmental justice, to speak to your point. And within HAQAST, we actually have had a Tiger team in the last round and in the current round explicitly focused on environmental justice. And Shen Zhao, you want to raise your hand? Right behind you. She's leading the environmental justice Tiger team right now, which has regular meetings and resources that welcome new environmental justice groups at any time. So we appreciate this point that the needs of different organizations really vary, and across scale, across perspective, across priorities. And, you know, we've tried to build some initiatives to begin this, but really it depends on your involvement. So we're really happy you're here.
Air quality monitors looking at VOCs, greenhouse gases, and PM. And we already have our weather station up and running, and we'll also be installing 2 seismographs in the next 60 days. So we're like one of the leading scientific investigating organizations that we belong to statewide, regional, and national organizations. And I'm updating them onto our efforts, and I can bring in another 50 to 100 organizations to be involved in this type of thing. And I volunteer to participate in doing that.
That's awesome. Okay.
Nothing really to add except, yes, that's awesome. And also, I'm proud that through our initial Tiger team in 2021, we really led the way at NASA, we being HAQAST, in satellite data for environmental justice. And now, thanks to kind of our vanguard effort, there is just an entire focus area in NASA Earth Action on environmental justice. So that, and they're continuously releasing new solicitations for proposals to them as well.
Brad?
So it's really exciting to see that the applied sciences is growing into Earth Action. You talked about, I think I caught 3 new thematic areas: climate resilience, wildfires, and infrastructure. Do you think there'll be something like HAQAST that will be a focused science team that addresses those, or do you see HAQAST broadening so that it starts bringing those things into its portfolio?
That's interesting. I could actually see both. Now, as I always say, what is it? Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. There's already been teams in a HAQAST-ish mold formed in Earth Action and Applied Sciences, and formerly Applied Science, including, for example, the Western Water, it's WAYO, Western Water Applications Office. I should have known applications. So WAYO has been formed. There's the NASA Harvest Consortium looking at agriculture, and I'm missing some of them. So these were all formed after HAQAST because of the success of HAQAST. And while there's a little differences, some are consortiums, some are teams, some are offices, they all are kind of in this same mindset of bringing together the scientists, the researchers with the stakeholders and partners to come up with solutions. So I can definitely see as we continue to expand the thematic areas of Earth Action, that those could start forming in those groups as well. For example, because yes, like you said, we've expanded with a wildfire thematic area, environmental justice thematic area, climate resilience, as well as energy and infrastructure as far as thematic areas.
Great. Any other questions, comments, kickoffs? Well, there'll be plenty of time for discussion. Enjoy the coffee break and then pick your breakout session and have a great meeting. Thank you all so much.